The Healing Arts team at St. Mary's Hospital requested my participation in a program known as the Healing Arts, and to establish whether healing arts as such would be very helpful in the recovery process and the rehabilitation of patients who have suffered a stroke. And so we looked at a protocol which was drafted by Healing Arts and some researchers from London, and I thought that was a very exciting idea to add on to the rehabilitation program in the stroke unit at St. Mary's Hospital.
I mean, stroke is a specialist area, obviously, and I was very impressed with the way that it was approached in respect of all of the artists had stroke training brought in from Guy, and so they have an understanding and a knowledge, albeit not expert knowledge, but a knowledge of what stroke does and what it is. So I was very impressed with that.
There were patients who had suffered a stroke who are able to give consent, or if consent was not possible, assent through next of kin, and those who could meaningfully participate in the program. It wasn't possible to offer it to those who, for example, had marked speech problems, or those who are not able to hear or use their limbs effectively in making models and so on.
The artists were working with patients on things like painting, drawing, looking at using photos and montage. Some did dancing and movement. There was some writing like poetry and reading. And as far as I know, they tried to make the activities so they were both kind of active and more passive. So if somebody just wanted to sit and listen to some music and have some time to relax and then some time to reminisce about that piece of music, they could do that, or they could sit and play music and use an instrument. So there was different ways depending on what the patient wanted to do, and it was very patient-centred. So whatever the mood the patient was in that day, or whatever their interests were, they would change the activities depending on that.
And I knew one of my patients, he had made a boat, which was quite impressive because that was quite physically presented itself in the room. So yeah, I just remember his one being quite, because it was 3D and it's because it was in the room as opposed to kept away in a box, it was a bit more obvious and drew my attention a little bit more.
There was one lady in particular who was on the ward for quite some time, maybe 3 or 4 months. Unfortunately, she's now passed away. But she was very low in mood the whole time she was on the ward, and she didn't really interact very much, and she often refused therapy and didn't seem to have that many visitors, and like I say, was very low in mood. And she joined in with the arts programme, and she saw an artist, and we weren't sure that she was going to maybe participate that well or not get that much out of it, but she did really well. And when I spoke to her afterwards, she was able to recount the artist's name, and she said she was a wonderful lady, but she couldn't remember any of the other nurses or therapists' names on the ward. So I think that was important, and told me what she'd been doing. And actually, this lady had a real love for the beach, and one particular beach on the island, and the artists had gone one evening to record the sounds of the sea and pick up stones from the beach, and had brought them in to play this lady in a hospital bed, and apparently that had made a real impact on her, and she found that quite an emotional and rewarding experience.
I think they gained a great deal of benefit. At the end of the program, quite a number of patients were asking if they could continue on the program. I sat in 2 or 3 programs, and I was in fact very impressed and wanted the program to continue, even if there is no evidence base for its benefit as yet in the published literature. And this included occupying their time on the wards. It also included learning new things, and also using their affected limbs in a way they wouldn't otherwise have used them. And also singing. For example, one patient who I found it very difficult to speak could sing. So maybe this is one area that one could look at long term, and using a larger number of patients to see whether there is benefit.
from what I've heard the patients say, it's having that opportunity to have one-to-one time off of the ward with somebody that's not a medical person, so somebody that's just there to spend time with them and haven't got, other things they want to work on. It's whatever the patient wants to work on. It's their time and it's not medicalised. And I think that's what a lot of the patients said. And also freedom from boredom. I know that a lot of people say that time sat on the ward all day. There's not physiotherapy and speech therapy and activities happening all day. So it's an opportunity to not be sat staring at the wall, staring at the telly. So I think that those things are the most important.
I think the clinical value has been occupying the patients with something that they're interested in, because there isn't a single aspect of art that was applied across the board. They had to choose what they wanted. And so that kind of gave them something very interesting and something of interest to individuals.
I've always felt that rehabilitation after a stroke is not just about how much physiotherapy or occupational therapy you get, but it's about whole ethos. If we can all look at it in that way and help people to move forward and recognising their limitations and capabilities, but also recognising them as a person and what they like, so it's person-centred, and that's the big thing, then I think it's got to be a good thing.
Most of our patients on the stroke rehabilitation unit do not get physiotherapy or other activities around the clock. And so if we were to subdivide all the activities that they participate in, such as occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, their nursing activities, ward rounds by consultants, etc., it wouldn't occupy the whole day. But if we added on the arts program, I think this would be a very important aspect of their rehabilitation. And being a very enjoyable activity, I think appending it to the current rehabilitation activities would be very useful.